So let's look at what a computer would do with this level of sound, and it would produce that. So that's getting better. It's getting, you know, slightly better. It has unfortunately shifted. So we have all of this data over here, is now kind of being put over here because it doesn't reach that peak until right at the sample point. And then again here we do have a reasonably good curve to follow this. You know, that's pretty good, and you've got that represented, but it's still missing a lot of data off of that. You're missing the nuances in the sound. So that is a bit of an issue in that respect. So we're not quite getting there just yet. So let's bump up. Let's double the amount of samples taken again. Let's go to 16. So there we have a lot more in place. So that's looking like it'll produce a much clearer, representation of the sound. And when we convert sound from the real world into digital, it's called analog to digital conversion. And when we convert it from digital to analog, it's called DAC, digital to analog conversion. So we take these digital readings and convert that into sound waves. So this is 16 samples per second. So it's getting a little bit clearer. Yeah, we're getting a slightly more nuanced curve over here. Again, it's a little bit delayed in it coming back down. It is following it reasonably well. But again, this 16 kilobits would be a really bad, if you heard 16 kilobits, and that would be actually 16,000 samples a second. If we heard that, it would still sound really bad quality. When we listen to an MP3 or an MP4, that they were mostly 128 kilobytes per second. So that would give us 128,000 samples per second. So let's just rub this. There you go. So, but let's go up to 32, because 32 gives us a fairly reasonable, fairly reasonable outcome for samples. And there we go. So again, this, I think I'd say if we got up to 64 samples per second, we get a pretty clear representation of the sound wave here. We have it slightly more nuanced. See, what we want to do is get rid of all of these gaps here if possible with doing that. So it is getting there. You know, we're getting a lot closer to the actual sound being represented in this data, but it's still not going to be perfect. And there's a dip there where it goes below, it gets caught out. And this is such a fast curve that you have quite a big chunk of data missing there. So if we compare 4 samples per second here to 32 samples per second, and these can be, you know, you can round them up to 4 kilobytes per second or 32 kilobytes per second. Obviously, the 32 samples per second is going to be a lot more representative of the sound. And therefore, when you play it back from the computer, you will get more of the frequencies, you'll get more of the volume changes, and you'll get a much better, quality thing. But what's going to happen to the file size in the jump from 4 samples per second to 32 samples per second? Can anybody answer that? What will happen to the file size if we're taking, instead of 4 samples a second, we're taking 32? What's going to happen to the files? It will increase. Yeah, it will get huge. Now, excellent. Well done, guys. Yeah, it will increase significantly. And you can do 2 types of sound recording. You can do what's called lossy, where you compress the sound. So it uses an algorithm to knock off the high frequencies that humans normally can't hear and knock off the low frequencies humans can't normally hear, and compress it down. And there's tons of different algorithms. There's MP3, MP4, there's MPEG, there's MKV, there's all kinds of different methods of compression. but you still lose a bit of quality. Yeah, you still lose a bit of that. But then there's what we call lossless compression. Yes, it is basically covering Module 2 and GCSE Comp Sci. I need to brush up on my knowledge. Good, that's excellent. Yes, Creative Computing Club teaches GCSE. So if you ever have any questions, come back to Creative Computing Club. We'll help you out with your GCSE. Whereas in FLAC, we have what we call lossless compression, where we don't lose anything. We record every single nuance, but those files are huge. So we could have a song that's an MP4, and that would be about, so it's, say it's a 4-minute song, it might be about 4 megabytes. But if we had it as a FLAC, which is a lossless compression, so we don't lose any quality, any information whatsoever, that could be up to 3 to 4, 500 megabytes. So a massive file. A lot of concert music, and by that I mean what's traditionally viewed as classical music, that often gets stored as FLAC because a lot of people claim that when you compress classical music, you lose a lot of the nuances, and that's fair enough. We have computers that can handle storing sound at that level now. It used to be the case that, you know, hard drives were like 1 or 2 gigabytes, or no, even sometimes even like 32 megabytes hard drives I've seen. So you wouldn't be able to store a song like that. But what we can do nowadays, because we have massive hard drives, we can actually have much better quality. And it's the same thing for things like DVD and Blu-ray, and you know, when you have different levels of quality of video as well. Now we're only covering text and sound today, but this kind of methodology of representing things like images, things like data, all of those things, 3D models, they all get converted down to zeros and ones in computers so they can understand them. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Do you have any questions whatsoever about data representation? If so, please ask away. And I love the fact that you recognize that this is part of GCSE computer science, because it is. It very, very much is a very important part. Got to learn your ones and zeros for your GCSE. If you have any questions, just ask away. It's very helpful. Oh, thank you. Hopefully this, if you're not already into computing, hopefully this will get you interested in computing. Because yeah, computing is a wonderful thing. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. And if you attend the session later at 3:30, we're going to teach you how to do some basic programming to take control of your computer and do some computer art. Thank you so much. Okay, cool.